So 100,000 women went on strike today in Iceland to demand gender equality. The entire population is 370,000. So over 25% of the population went on strike. And I have some crazy news for you. The economy did not come to a stop, and it continued as normal. The only memo I got was that HR departments were getting no complaints for the 24 hours that the women were on strike. And men were writing that they were really sorry women didn't get gender equality. But I heard one CEO said it was nice to finally get some done, end quote.
If companies can pay women less, why don't they hire all women?
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Really?
I understand your argument, and I understand that you're angry.
I'm not angry.
I can hear it in your voice.
I'm not
Listen to
angry.
your voice.
I'm hearing
Now
my voice and I sound pretty calm.
You have now shifted the quality of your voice, and I thank you for that.
Okay.
And you've just given me a condescending look, and that's another reason why we need feminism. And now I'm done, and thank you so much.
Would you give up your right to vote if it meant you got drafted into the army?
Yes.
Why is it more socially acceptable for women to hate men than it is for men to hate women?
Because men are the devil.
Because men are trash.
If men are more valued in society than women, why would they be the first ones sacrificed in war?
Because they think they're more valued. They're being paid for more for everything, so you put your online.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Why are the men of today expected to pay for the sins of the men of the past?
Because they still keep making the same mistakes.
So is feminism about revenge?
No, feminism is about our right to be, allowed.
I think there's a base level of equality that we're trying to reach over here, and as long as we can get to that, then I think we're chilling, but we got a long way to go.
What's striking is how often the word oppression gets used without anyone being able to clearly define it. When you ask for specifics, actual rights one group has that the other doesn't, the conversation suddenly shifts, not to laws, not to policies, but to feelings. And feelings are powerful, sure, but they're not evidence. Here's the contradiction that keeps popping up. On one hand, there's a claim of systemic disadvantage. Every time this topic comes up, the room goes quiet. Not because the truth is complicated, but because it's uncomfortable. Before we dive in, drop a comment. Are modern men more delusional? Or is it the ladies? Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what we expose next. Now let's talk about what's really being said here. There's an open admission that equal standards wouldn't be acceptable. Same expectations, same risks, same accountability. That's where the enthusiasm drops. And that's not oppression. That's selective equality. Take the wage gap argument. It's been recycled for decades, even after being broken down repeatedly. When you actually control 4 variables, hours worked, career choice, overtime, dangerous jobs, seniority, the dramatic headline gap shrinks fast. What remains isn't proof of discrimination, but proof that choices matter. Different paths lead to different outcomes. That's not a scandal. That's reality. And here's the bigger issue. If someone were truly being wronged on a consistent systemic level, examples would be everywhere, clear, verifiable, easy to point to. Instead, we keep hearing the same talking points, repeated like slogans, long after they've been challenged and clarified. Repetition doesn't turn a weak argument into a strong one. This is where accountability comes into play. Claiming victimhood without evidence doesn't strengthen a movement, it weakens it. It shifts the conversation away from real problems and turns it into a shield against self-reflection. And in the long run, that doesn't empower anyone. It just blurs the line between genuine inequality and personal dissatisfaction. That's the pattern we're seeing. Not a lack of rights, but a refusal to accept that freedom also comes with responsibility.
Women have about dating from fantasy land to sometimes true. I deserve a 6'4" CEO model who makes $100,000 a year. That man is like 0.01% of the population and has more options than you can even count. You are not competing for him, you are in line behind a million other women who have the exact same checklist. S tier. I only attract toxic men. At some point you might want to look in the mirror because if every guy you're attracting is toxic, you might be the pattern. You are either picking them or creating the toxicity yourself. B tier. Where are all the good men? Well, they're probably in your DMs right now, but you just called them nice or too boring. And look, maybe they are, but what you're asking for is there. But you won't look twice until you're 34 and the roster has dried up. C tier. I want a traditional man, but I am not traditional. She wants him to pay, lead, and protect, but cooking, cleaning, or submitting to anything, nah, that's oppression. Pick a lane. You can't have 1950s benefits with modern day expectations. S tier. I bring a lot to the table. Ask her what she brings to the table and she will buffer like a broken Wi-Fi connection. My presence, energy, and vibes, that's not a contribution, that is showing up. Meanwhile, her checklist for you is probably 3 pages long. A tier. I can change him. Here's the thing. Sometimes women do help men level up, but there's a big difference between bringing out his potential and building a man from scratch. One works, the other is just going to burn you out. D tier. All men are trash. She's not dating all men, she is dating the same guy with a different name 6 times in a row. I don't know about you, but after a while, maybe the trash collector is the problem here. A tier. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. This quote sometimes looks an awful lot like a red flag disguised as a standard. If her worst is emotional warfare at 2 a.m. and her best is tolerable for a weekend, run. C tier. Height doesn't matter. Says height isn't a big deal, but her Hinge bio says must be 6 foot minimum to ride. Her words and actions are living in 2 completely different zip codes. A tier. Men are intimidated by me. Sometimes they might not actually be intimidated and they just don't want the headache. Labeling yourself as intimidating sounds like a lot better of an excuse than just saying you're hard to deal with. B tier. Body count doesn't matter for women. Typically the ones that are saying this are the ones that don't want theirs to count against them. Tell that to any guy who's thinking long term and watch his face.
Notice the contrast here, and it's not accidental. He didn't hide behind buzzwords or emotional fog. He made specific claims, pointed to concrete examples, and stood on them. That's usually the telltale sign of someone who understands their own position and isn't afraid of scrutiny. Confidence in an argument doesn't come from volume or outrage. It comes from clarity. When someone knows what they're talking about, they don't need to be vague. They don't need to blur definitions or move the goalposts mid-conversation. They say what they mean because they're prepared for pushback. Intentional vagueness, on the other hand, is a defensive strategy. It's a way to sound right without being provable. If nothing is clearly defined, nothing can be challenged. And if nothing can be challenged, the argument can survive without ever being tested. That's not strength, that's insulation. You see this pattern constantly in modern gender debates. Big claims, emotional language, but no specifics. When pressed for details, the response isn't evidence. It's outrage or deflection or accusations of bad faith. Anything except the substance itself. Strong ideas invite criticism because they can withstand it. Weak ideas avoid detail because detail exposes the cracks. That's why clarity matters so much in these conversations. The moment someone is willing to be precise, they're also willing to be held accountable. And accountability is exactly what fragile narratives try hardest to avoid.
77 cents on the dollar for what men make. So if women don't make less than men?
Actually, if you start looking at the numbers, Rachel, there are lots of reasons for that.
Wait. Well, don't tell me the reasons are. Do women make less than men for doing the same work?
No, because...
Wow. Okay.
Well, for example, men work an average of 44 hours a week. Women work 41 hours a week. Men go into professions like engineering, science, and math that earn more. Women want more flexible
Listen, this is not a math is hard part.
No. Yes, it is, actually.
No, it isn't.
Well,
listen.
All right, let Rachel frame it, though, the way you
right now,
laid it out.
women are making 77 cents on the dollar for what men are making.
But that's not true. If so,
let Rachel make her point.
Every greedy businessman in America would hire only women, save 25%. And I love how passionate you are. I wish you were as right about what you're saying as you are passionate about it. I really do. For example, may I share one fact with you? When you look at, for example, single women working in America today between the ages of, I think, 40 and 64, who makes more, men or women, on average? Men make $40,000 a year. Women make $47,000. When you take out the marriage factor, look at some economics. My point here is that we're manufacturing a political crisis.
Let's nip this man versus bear conversation in the bud right now. The question is, would you rather be in the forest alone with a man or a bear? Not a racist or a bear. What percentage of men do y'all think are racists? That's what's really getting to me, because y'all make it seem like it's a 50-50% chance. Like, oh, he might me, he might not. Have you lost your mind? And before y'all answer that in the comments, because it is a question and I do want an answer, what percentage of men do y'all think are racist? And when you answer, I want you to put it in the form of a sentence of the men that are in your life. So that way we can bring this back to reality. So I want you to say, of my 3 brothers, 2 of them are. Of my 6 male cousins, 3 of them are. Of my 5 male friends, 2 of them are. I want you to give me those numbers. And I think about this in real life because I have brothers in real life. And if somebody out there chose to be in the forest with a bear as opposed to one of my brothers because you thought there was even a chance that one of them might you, Fight me right now. No, fight me right now.
What do you bring to the table? When I hear a man ask women that question, it already tells me about that man everything I need to know. So let me just clarify something here. Women sacrifice so much in relationships, giving birth, raising children, putting dreams on hold, carrying the emotional weight, holding the home together while still showing up with love. Women pour from empty cups day after day. So here's the question nobody likes to ask out loud. What can a man sacrifice for a woman?
See, this is what I call twisting the meaning, changing the whole point of the discussion to paint men in a bad light. When guys ask, what do you bring to the table, they're not asking women who are good partners. They're not talking about the women who raise kids, build a home, support their men, and make sacrifices. Those women clearly bring a lot to the table, and most men respect them deeply. But let's be honest, that's not the majority. Most women today who are in their relationships aren't giving birth, raising multiple kids, or putting their careers on hold. Maybe in a marriage, more women do. But even then, we are living in a time with the lowest birth rates in modern history. So let's stop pretending that every woman is out there sacrificing everything for love and family. And even in a scenario she described, let's say a woman is raising kids and supporting her family. Great, but what about the man? He's probably working 10-12 hours a day, taking care of financial responsibilities, protecting the family, fixing things, solving problems, and still being expected to stay strong through it all. He sacrifices sleep, time, peace of mind, and years of his life to provide for his family. But somehow, that's invisible? And that's the manipulation right here. Framing it as if only women give and men just take. When in reality, in most healthy relationships, both sides give a lot. The truth is, when men ask, what do you bring to the table, they're talking about the women who don't contribute anything. The ones who expect everything to be handed to them just for existing. The ones who think that showing up is enough. If you are a woman who actually puts effort, builds with her man, shows empathy, and brings peace, few men would question your value. But if all you offer is attitude and expectations, don't be surprised when someone asks, what do you bring to the table?
Meanwhile, I will ask my man to do anything for me, but I swear to you, the moment that he asks me to do anything, I'm irritated. And it could be the simplest task, like, oh, could you rinse this cup out for me because you're right there by the sink? Pissed. Instantly pissed. Or, oh, could you go hand me a towel because I forgot to grab it? Why the did you not grab that towel?
Y'all are such bad people. Like no jokes. Y'all are actually just bad people. I was expecting to look at the comments, and the comments were going to be like, on her neck, no. Me AF, no me. He does everything for me. I've been working on it though. As hell, we are unreasonable. They gonna come for you, but this is a lot of us. Me, I'm trying to be nicer. Y'all are genuinely y'all just ain't, actually. Of course you're the problem. Of course you're the problem. Your man deserves better. I would say I wish he would leave you, but I saw that y'all had a kid together. But if he leave he the bad guy. He the bad guy.
I understand the Tyler and Jordan situation because something similar happened to me back in 2022. I was talking to this African and he was like, yeah, I'm going to be in your city January 31st. Let's kick it. I was like, okay, cool. I gave him my number and he was like, yeah, I just want to hang out with you for like an hour and we do a little Snow White. How much is that? I was like, oh, I'll let it go for about $400. He was like, oh, okay, cool. So I come through there, we start skating, and before I know it, I'm really feeling real euphoric. Like, I don't know what he mixed it with, but I was just feeling super myself. I was feeling myself, like just really feeling myself. I don't know what happened, but all I know is I did not leave there in an hour. I left there the next day. Why is it February 1st? So I was like, oh, you played with me. You really didn't have to do all that. And I started feeling weird about the whole situation. I started regretting the whole situation. I was like, you know what? You're going to have to come up off of more than $400. And he was just like, nah, here's your money. And yeah, you got a dip. And I was just like, oh, you don't want to pay me more? And he was like, no. I was like, you know what? You ain't got to fight me. You're going to have to fight these allegations. So what I allegedly did is I went to the hospital, got a drug test, got an R kit, and I texted him and I was just like, hey, I felt really weird about that whole situation. I didn't appreciate it. And you know what? Since you didn't want to come off of what you agreed on, it's all good and dandy. Just know that there are going to be repercussions of what you did. And that man said nothing to me but this. This is what he had to say to me. I allegedly say all this to say, Jordan, you did all this to accomplish something, but you didn't execute it right. And Talil, this is a lesson.
And you go in the comments and there's women backing up that behavior. Here's the thing. This woman gets online and she admits to not one, but 3 different crimes. The first one being she agreed to sell her for $400. Whatever, great. That's her business, but it's still illegal. She goes and she does a list voluntarily with the man to admit that she feels euphoric. So she probably did excess amount of sex. She wakes up the next day and says she regrets the situation. She didn't regret the situation. She saw an opportunity. He paid her the $400 that they agreed upon. It wasn't enough because she saw said opportunity. So she decided to go down to the police department and file a false allegation against the man. So of course, panic, he acquiesces to her request and pays her what she's asked for after the initial agreement. This is exactly why a lot of us don't believe all women initially when they come out with allegations. I wait for evidence to come out because of women, disgusting, demonic women like this, who get on here and promote extorting people. Understand? Promoting the lifestyle of selling your body to young women. Not only selling your body to young women, but then go on one step further to extorting the men that you've agreed upon to buy your services. You don't think this won't end well for some of these young ladies? Let's just not even talk about how morally reprehensible it is to go down to the police department and file a false obligation against a person because you stayed up all night doing and you woke. Y'all ladies gonna have to stop.
Here's where the conversation cuts through the noise, because this isn't about picking a side. It's about calling out bad decisions, period. When someone says both parties look ridiculous, that's not fence sitting. That's recognizing preventable chaos when you see it. This is a textbook example of what not to do if you value peace, stability, or common sense. Most real-world problems don't start as disasters. They start as avoidable situations that people willingly walk into while telling themselves it'll probably be fine. That mindset is how accountability gets outsourced to luck. There's a big difference between confidence and recklessness. Choosing to avoid obviously problematic situations isn't weakness, it's foresight. Yet modern culture keeps pushing this idea that self-control is boring, boundaries are restrictive, and consequences are something you can just talk your way out of later. That's not empowerment. That's denial. And let's be honest about the double standard quietly sitting in the background. Even when someone openly admits to wrongdoing, the expectation is still that nothing serious will happen. No real pushback, no immediate consequences, just vibes and excuses. That assumption alone tells you a lot about how uneven accountability has become. But here's the part people overlook. The internet doesn't forget. Public admissions don't disappear just because the moment passes. Today it's brushed off. Tomorrow it's a pattern. And once something becomes a pattern, receipts start to matter. What felt like a joke or a flex can turn into evidence real fast. The bigger lesson here isn't about gender. It's about responsibility. Avoiding chaos beats surviving it every time. And hoping for the best after making reckless choices isn't confidence. It's gambling with your future and assuming the house will keep letting you win.
Average man think that he could fully beat a professional female fighter?
Well, that's because 99.9% of the time, they absolutely can. And I know hearing that is going to upset some out there, but those are probably the same ones that are getting upset that like to avoid things like factual information and basic biology. It's either that or they've been watching way too many action films and actually believe it when the 120-pound female heroine actually manages to defeat the 220-pound male villain using nothing but skill alone. It's either that or they have no concept of reality.
And this is where we bring it home. If this breakdown resonated with you, it's because you're starting to notice the pattern, the mixed messages, the double standards, the way accountability keeps getting dodged while confidence stays loud. These conversations aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a much bigger cultural loop that keeps repeating itself because too few people are willing to question it honestly. That's exactly why the next video matters even more. It goes deeper, connects the dots, and exposes another angle most people pretend not to see until it hits close to home. So if this one made you pause, think, or nod along, don't stop here. Click into the next video. I'll see you there.